She's funny, she's smart, she craves chocolate every day, and she is the Greek goddess of comedy. Here is your host, Ellen Karis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Karis' Comedy Corner. My name is Ellen Karis, and we have a guest today on Karis' Comedy Corner. I am very excited. She is very special and young. But before we get to her, let's get to the sponsors. I mean, I couldn't do this without them. Our first sponsor is Baywatch Marketing. Go to their website, baywalk.net, for all of your advertising and marketing needs. They can help you with your website. They can help you with any type of a marketing flyer. They can help you analyze the demographics of your business, and they are experts in the Greek community. Go to their website, hollywoodgreeks.com, to find out all your Greek entertainment, or hellenicfestivals.org to find out where there's a Greek festival near you. Those are coming soon, I promise. We are over the COVID, so it's time for lots of souvlaki and pasticho. Go to their website, baywalk.net, and we thank them for their ongoing support. Our other sponsor. If I had copy, I would never make a mistake, but I like to do it off the top of my head, and we can see how smooth that's going. Our other sponsor is Select Flex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What's an orthotic? It's also called an insert. What do you do with that? You put it in your shoe. Why? Because it helps you with your entire alignment of your body, your hips, your knees, your back, your shins, your ankles. Everything starts from the feet, works its way up. I have these in all of my shoes, Uggs especially, because Uggs have no support. All my sneakers, I never work out without them. They're fantastic. And the magic of these orthotics is that there is an adjustability in the arch. You can make the arch firm, extra firm, extra firm, depending on what your needs are with the turn of a dial. Go to their website, selectflex.com, selectflex.com, and there is a 30-second video. You can find out how these work. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, there is a 25% discount if you type in the code FAMILY25, FAMILY 25, because you, my listeners, I feel closer to than my family. And of course, we don't fight as much. So go to their website, selectflex.com, and we thank them for their support. Yeah, I know. They're always like, Ellen, can you come up with a better joke than that? And it's like, no, I can't. So anyway, thank you, everybody. So excited. We have, like I said, when I say young, I mean, because I was thinking about this the other day. For the most part, I have my contemporaries, a little older, a little younger. Every once in a while, we have a person that has no lines on their face, is how I like to look at it. But I was thinking about this, but most of the not ish, there's no ish here, young, there have been mostly guys. So I think this is the first young lady that we've had, and she is very special to me because I am friends with her parents, who I adore, and I've watched her grow up. So this is certainly the first time that I've had a guest where I've actually watched them blossom into a young adult. So she is making her own way in the world of wellness and fitness and mental health and broadcasting and being supportive and all kinds of things, marketing. She's like, this is what's going on with the young people. It's not like my day where it's like, you need an accounting degree, you need a law degree, you need a teaching degree. It's like these kids can do everything, and it's very, very exciting to watch. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Stella Stephanopoulos. We have no applause.
Thank you.
This is the crew.
Thank you for that wonderful welcome and intro.
You are adorable. And I am so proud of you. And it blows my mind, but in a good way, of course, to see you from, I knew you, I think probably about when you were 10 years old or so.
Yeah, I know, a long time. It's so funny that you start out with that, because last night I was getting dinner with my parents for St. Patrick's Day. They took me out because I had no plans. And I think they were like, why don't you have plans? And I was like, oh, like, I'm just going to stay home. But they were like, no, like, come out with us. So they took me out for dinner, and we were reminiscing on like my childhood. Just they were telling me how they would always take me out, and I'd be seated at a bar and they would watch me like from afar in the restaurant, and they would just see me chat up adults like as a 5, 6, 7-year-old at the bar. And it's just funny because I feel like I blacked out my childhood. Like, I don't know why I can't remember so much of it. Like, I have very small snippets of memory, but it is really special to be here with you today because you have known me like most of my entire life and seen me grow up over the past 10, 15 years.
I was going to say, I think it's more like 15 years. Like, I remember you really, really little. So first of all, I want everybody to just take a moment and to just go back to what Stella said. My parents said, why don't you have plans? Like, you can see, this is the evolution of the Greek parents, by the way, because that was not our parents at all. And it's St. Patrick's Day, which is not our holiday as Greek people, you know? So the fact that they were encouraging you to go out, and they go out with you. As a matter of fact, I was looking at, you have 2 Instagram pages, one Stella Stephanopoulos and the other one Everday Endorphins, which we're going to get to, and which is based on your podcast. And there's a picture of you holding a martini with your dad. And it's just like, it was just blew. I just saw it like 10 minutes ago, and it just blew my mind. And your parents are George and Elena Stephanopoulos. They're so dynamic. They're so wonderful. They really are that couple. Like, when they walk in, they're like, George and Elena are here. Like that, you perk up, you know, because they come over. They always have fun things to say, and they have good banter with each other. You know, it's funny because it's not like they act like this regal couple or whatever. Like, they're so real when you're with them, which I love. And it's funny. I mean, it's hilarious, you know, but I mean, they have an awesome relationship and a great relationship, but it's like, they show how real they are in real life. Like, I love that. You know what I'm saying? I like to think my husband and I are like that too. I almost saw comics, so I'm like always on. But not everybody is like that, you know, but they're very cool. And I know they are so proud of you. And every time I've seen them, especially when you were in college, because you weren't with them, and they were just glowing when you went to school at University of Missouri, right? University of Missouri?
I went to Washington University in St. Louis in Missouri.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, that's what it was. And
it's okay. Easy to get mixed up. People always say like in Seattle, like in Washington or DC, but it's WashU in St. Louis in Missouri.
Yeah, no, but I knew it was Missouri because I remember when they told me, I was like, Missouri, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
They were so proud of you. Even when you got into high school, didn't you go to Bronx Science?
Yeah, I was at Bronx Science.
So, and then they made that move up, you know, up to Riverdale, and so I just always you know, their life revolves around you, but in a good way. And so it's just,
you know, they said that they stopped at perfection. There's just me. So that's, you know, it's been the 3 of us since day one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's the that's the way God wanted it. I mean, that's it. That's sort of the, and speaking of that, you know, not only are we brought up in the Greek Orthodox faith, but your grandfather was a priest. He's passed, but you know, a priest. You obviously, your great uncle is a priest, and you come from that line, that family. Your father, I know, comes from a large family, and he was like we call them PKs, you know, priest kids. So, you know, it's interesting. Your father's, I find, like I said, both your parents very fascinating. Your father's got all these different interests, but he loves, not only is he a lawyer, but on the flip side, he's got this creative side, which I'm assuming has filtered down genetically to you, because you clearly have a creative side. And just to give him a huge plug, he produced this beautiful golf movie, women's golf based love story, you're finding yourself movie called Swing Away, that was released, I'm going to say 5 years ago or so, but it was 20 years in the making or something, you know, just crazy. And I got to be involved because he asked me to take the lead woman, which was Shannon Elizabeth, who was not Greek, but she played a Greek American girl, and just sort of woman, and sort of take her around and just kind of, I wind up kind of telling her about my life, and I took her over to church, to the cathedral, and I just showed her all the things like the baptismal font, or, you know, I mean, I just started to get into all the culture, and plus I helped her with the script that was in Greek, that, you know, she had in phonetics, obviously. So anyway, but your father's got this creative side, your mother's got this creative side and a business side, because she's a real estate agent and she's like kicking butt. So then they made Stella. They made this great, beautiful girl. So tell us, you went to school for what? What did you get a degree in?
So my major was pretty interesting. It was technically one major, but 3 different areas of study. And it was called philosophy, neuroscience, and psychology. So that was my primary major. And then I minored in creative writing and leadership and strategic management in our business school. So I was all over the place in college.
So just like I just said, so this is George and Elena's creation. That's perfect. I'm glad I said all that, because that makes perfect sense that you studied 7 different areas.
Yeah. So it was like, you know, I came into WashU as a bio major thinking that I wanted to be pre-med, go to med school, be a doctor. Bronx Science was a very science oriented place, as you know, the name in it of itself is Bronx Science. So I was very under the impression that I wanted to be a doctor, and I was very passionate about the medical community. But when I got to WashU, I thought to myself, I was feeling a little burnt out by so many science courses, and I wanted to really take the time to explore and see what college had to offer. And I knew that WashU had this really cool major called PNP, the philosophy, neuroscience, psychology major. So I said to myself, I'm going to switch out of bio, go down the PNP track, see if I want to do pre-med, revisit it sophomore year. And by the time sophomore year rolled around, I was like, well, I don't want to commit to 2 semesters of chemistry, or go 2 semesters of bio, all the prerequisite classes that you needed to take the MCAT and go to med school. So I kind of just gave up on that pre-med dream and followed the PNP path. And, you know, throughout college, I was really of the mentality that if you just study what you're interested in, things kind of fall into place. I wasn't even thinking about getting a job. I felt like I had accomplished what I needed to. I checked off the boxes and I got into college, and then I got there and I was like, okay, what now? What more am I working towards? It didn't hit me that there is life post-grad, and I wasn't very career oriented at that point. But I ended up joining a business fraternity at school called AK Psi, Alpha Kappa Psi, the Greek letters. And through that community, I made so many great friends. It was really just an amazing opportunity to have a tight-knit group of people on campus that I could go to, not only socially and for personal reasons, but also for professional reasons. And that's how I kind of fell into the world of business consulting. So long story short, I ended up recruiting for jobs in the business consulting world my junior fall, got an offer at Accenture, took it, did the internship during the COVID summer, and then signed my return offer. And now I'm working full-time at Accenture in business consulting. So it's very not really directly related to PNP or creative writing, but in a way it also is, because I think those areas of study in particular can really transfer to anything you choose to do.
So 2 things. One is, I want everybody to know that Bronx Science is one of the top elite schools in New York City, and you have to be a super, super smarty to get in and take a test. And I mean, you really have to be perfect grade. So congratulations on that. I know it was you're past that, but that was a huge, huge accomplishment in and of itself. So what can you explain to my audience what exactly business consulting is? And because everybody, or I should say everybody, lots of people use the term, I'm a consultant, and it's just I used to have a joke, this doesn't apply to you, but it'd be does that mean unemployed? What does that mean? I mean, because I'll use it, and I am pretty much practically unemployed. So just what exactly, so what do you do? So, because that's a big area, but it's consulting for what?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And it's also kind of a ridiculous answer because everyone's like, what even is consulting? And the easiest way I can explain it is that you're helping businesses, which are your clients, solve complex problems. So they come to a consulting firm like Accenture or like McKinsey or Deloitte or Bain, and they have a problem that they need help with. Maybe they want to change their strategy going into a different market, or they're looking to launch a new product with their business, or they're looking to develop something new within their organization, or they're trying to change the structure internally of the organization. Like there's so many different types of issues that our clients can come to us with. And our job is to help them solve these problems. So we develop strategic recommendations based off of the issues that they come to us with. So it's very collaborative, team oriented, very client facing, because you're co-creating with them, you're working directly with them and alongside your internal team, and you're analyzing data. I mean, these are a lot of, buzzwords and business jargon, but at the end of the day, you're helping solve clients' issues. So it's kind of like, I guess you could say, like a therapist in the business world, but you're doing work. You're actually developing strategy.
Right. So, but so that's the overall, but when you say clients, everybody has to have a specialty. So it could be, I don't know, a company that makes makeup. It could be a company,
right? Different industries,
hospitality. It could be the restaurant business. It could be anything. It could be medical, something in the medical field. It could be a big conglomerate of doctors. It could be anything. So do you have an industry specialty?
I don't, because within the analyst program, it's meant to be broad in general. So by the time you hit like consultant level, you're supposed to pick a specialization. However, in the 6 months that I've been working, every project I've been on thus far has been within the life sciences industry. So my clients have been pharmaceutical companies so far, which is interesting. And the reason that I wanted to try pharma work and life science work is because of that, former pre-med dream that I had. And, those interests around health and wellness, I thought that could be most applicable in the consulting world in like a pharma project, rather than doing like something in health and public services, doing insurance projects at hospitals, or doing statewide projects. I thought pharma could be interesting to try out, but my interests are very vast. And I think retail could be interesting to try out. And, something that I wanted for myself in these first 2 years is just to get a breadth of experience, as many different industries and functional roles as possible. But as it's turned out, mostly pharma projects so far.
So I feel a way our lives were a little parallel in a sense. So I got an accounting bachelor's degree and I went into public accounting. And one of the reasons I went into it was that I wanted to work in different businesses. I don't just want to work for, let's just say Pfizer, for example, and be the internal accountant or finance person. And I got exposure to all different industries. I did a lot of, my crazy manufacturing, publishing, the whole bit. I ultimately, I tried in real estate a little bit, and then I wound up going back to public. And then anyway, I wound up getting my MBA in finance, and then I worked on Wall Street for one of the large investment banking firms. So then that was it. But which is its own specialty, of course. But I didn't do that much of it in public accounting. But that's what it kind of reminds me of, and then you find your way. And I know in public accounting, what wound up happening was that some of my contemporaries, and obviously people senior to me, they were on a client, especially if they were on something for a couple of years, coming back as the audit. So a lot of the times they got hired as the controller or, some position there, so they'll poach you for their business. And I'm telling you, that's coming for you for sure, because you've got it, you've got it. So interesting that it's pharmaceuticals is a huge industry, and it was huge before COVID. It's even more huge now. And by the way, to me, as far as COVID goes, it's over. It's like, we're done. That's my mentality. I'm over, so I say we're in the post-COVID era.
I think we are too.
Yeah.
That's what I have to tell myself. I think we are too.
Well, now also it's not going to be like the beginning because we have treatments now. I mean, unless something, different, God forbid, too, but I'm just saying, whatever, but I'm just in this situation. I mean, we know how to treat it. And I mean, it's so different, the vaccines, all of it. It's so different. We're in a different place. Definitely. Anyway, I'm going to say, I know, I could see it with my third eye. So, because that's verification. But, interesting that you're doing a lot of pharmaceuticals, because now let's get to your passion project, your own business, Everday Endorphins, which was all about wellness and much more on a holistic approach. It's not like you're talking about, being on antibiotics. I mean, you're talking about yoga and meditation and, journaling and working out, and all of that, good food, nutrition. And I am so frustrated. It's still frustrating that we're in 2022. It's better, but it's not where we are, that we haven't integrated Western medicine with Eastern medicine. And I mean, talking about meditation now is so much different than it was 20 years ago, but it's still not there. And by the way, I've been holistic since forever, since I was your age. And I went down that road. That doesn't mean I've never been to a doctor, obviously, but I am a firm believer in supplements and, acupuncture and chi and I think working out. I mean, and unfortunately, and I'm not trying to, shame anybody, but a lot of people that got very sick with COVID. I'm not saying everybody, but some of them, as we know, with some of them, it didn't fare, that didn't wind up faring well, were people that were obese or, had obesity related diseases. I mean, that came from above. So.
I mean, a lot of our health issues stem from lifestyle diseases. So it makes sense that these issues are very comorbid. But, what I'm doing with Everday Endorphins is trying to promote that health is holistic, like you've mentioned. And it came from me reflecting on my own health journey and recognizing that the things that I thought meant were healthy, like getting adequate sleep and exercising and fueling your body with proper nutrition, although those are fundamentals and are incredibly important, that isn't what it means to be healthy. And health isn't a one size fits all equation. And it's not like one thing works for everyone. It's very personalized. And, health is really about nourishing your mind and your body and recognizing that health exists in everything that you do. And I came to this realization because I had experienced, what it was like to transition out of being an athlete in high school and then choosing to not be a competitive athlete in college. So the origin story really of Everday Endorphins, the name itself, stems from an Instagram account that I made back in 2014 when I was a freshman in high school. And at the time, I joined a crew team in New York, and it was my first time doing anything sports related and my first time being a student athlete. So I wanted to blog about it on Instagram, post photos of food I was eating, workouts I was doing. And I really loved it in high school. It was really a fun side thing for me. And then when I got to college and I chose to not continue rowing, I had this crisis where I was like, how can I stay healthy, but exercise in a way that keeps me toned and in shape, but I'm not doing these crazy workouts anymore. What am I supposed to eat? Stress of transitioning to college, built up. Everything was just crazy. And I kept posting, but the content didn't feel very authentic anymore. It was like a smoothie bowl or a salad or the workouts I was doing at the school gym. And I was like, no one cares to see another salad on their Instagram page. And just because I'm eating a salad doesn't mean that I'm healthier than the next person. And it also doesn't mean that I feel healthy in myself. So I started to kind of cringe at the content that I was posting. And I slowly started to dial it down. The Instagram account was not that active. But then COVID hit. I was studying abroad. I was sent home and I was with my parents from March until September, when I ended up going back to school in the fall to finish out my senior year. And I just thought to myself, let's bring back Everday Endorphins, but let's make the Instagram account a platform where I can promote this podcast that I want to do called Everday Endorphins, where I can have my interests around mental health and wellness and philosophy as part of my studies, and then creative writing and journalism and public speaking. All of those interests can converge through this podcast that I want to do, where I interview people on, what brings them endorphins and happiness, and what, gets them lit up and sparks them, and, focusing on the conversations around integrating our mind and our body and understanding that health is very holistic. So that's what really brought me to creating the platform, the podcast. And I've just kept up the Instagram now to promote the interviews that I do on my show on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you listen. And I also became a certified yoga instructor last summer. So now I post a lot of yoga content and inspirational quotes, and I try to keep it very educational, but also entertaining. So that's kind of how those two platforms now coincide.
I love everything that you said. And I'm so happy that your generation is embracing that. I mean, social media, I look at social media as great and evil. We know the evil part, right? The FOMO, the bullying, the I'm doing this, the fakeness, all that. And I think there needs to be training on how to use social media in a positive way. So for people that don't know, so Stella and I are Greek Orthodox, and we're in Lent. So Lent, and even if you're Christian, if you're Catholic, Lent is, I always find, a good time to just, give yourself a good reevaluation. And one of my Lenten goals, because I teach Sunday school and I make us do a list of Lenten goals, is to manage my social media intake. I need social media. I'm a comic, an actress, I write podcasts. I can't be off of it. I can't just say, that's it. I'm taking my Facebook and Instagram account off. But I need to figure out how to not continue to scroll, and then I'm in a tizzy. I hate myself. I've made the wrong decisions. I should have stayed in accounting. I could have been living in Florida by now. I can't, you should see I'm old, I'm this, I need Botox. It's just a mind screw. And maybe that's something you could bring in some more experts on, or talk about, so there's that. And then the good news is that you guys have got this whole industry, this whole life of being able to, because of social media, to be able to create jobs for yourself and careers that you like. And that's what I'm finding the big differences between now and when I was in college. It was, you needed to get the degree for the job, you just said about not being career oriented. That's not how we rolled. It was like, what are you going to do when you get out of here? And you had to be kind of zeroed focused. I was always a business major, so it was a little bit different. I can't speak about maybe people that were English majors or anything, but I know in the business world, whether you're marketing, business administration, advertising, a lot of the marketing people went to the advertising firms. So I think it's great that just listening to you, you taking that and bringing in all those things. And again, with holistic health, which has become much better, much more accepted. It used to be, and even before my time, but, it used to be like a hippie thing,
Yeah, definitely. And but it's crazy. Like when you think about it, how integrated our mind and our bodies are, it's all connected. Someone was telling me yesterday that our body lives in the present and our mind exists in the past and then the future. So when our mind is not in the present with our body suffers. And if you think about that, it's true. Think about chronic stress and how stress affects our body. When we're stressing and we're anxious and we're ruminating on the past and we're fixated on what may or may not happen in the future, which I do all the time, our body suffers. There's fatigue, exhaustion. I get pain. I feel lethargic. I feel tense. It's like not great. And so, you would hope by now that it's holistic health and medicine is accepted. And I think we're kind of moving towards that trend, which is really exciting. But, I think especially people my age, like young adults, people in their 20s, we're now like thrown into the real world and there's no playbook or like guide as to how to be an adult. And so what I'm trying to do is create a space where, I'm helping people navigate that journey, like that transition, young adulthood, and recognizing that there's so many other things you can do to take care of yourself. And I want my listeners to get excited about taking care of themselves. Like, I feel like, there's this thought like, oh, it's such a pain to have to do all these things, to be so self-disciplined, to make sure I'm in bed at the right time. And, it's going to hold me back from having fun with my life and with my friends. And like, there's all these like rules and limitations I have to put on myself to like have this healthy life. And then if you have that mentality, it can feel like it's a chore to take care of yourself. But I want to change that narrative and be like, no, you can actually have fun doing it. Like, you can feel empowered to take a hold of your own well-being. And I think that's where a lot of this holistic health comes into play as well.
I mean, that's amazing. And that's great. I'm thinking to myself, she's going to be the next Oprah. I mean, you've got it together, girl. I mean, I know you are clearly a young person, but you're like an old soul, which I feel like I remember saying something to your parents once about this. And they were like, yeah, she's an old soul. Cause you're even way ahead of the curve in your age group, but there's more opportunities and acceptance in living a healthier lifestyle. Again, let's go back to more choices, right? I mean, the health food industry, for example, like food's a huge part of everybody's life. We've got Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and they're in places that are in the, you lived in the Midwest, in the desolate Midwest now. And now with Amazon and Fresh, you don't have to live in the hippie city, in San Francisco now to get like, natural food. I mean, it's everywhere. Supermarkets carry them, so there's a lot more choices. It was funny. We were talking about Greek. I call it Greek Lent, but you know what I'm saying. And our Lent is more stringent than like the Catholics because they do like a no meat on Friday thing, and in which I'm like, really, that's your big sacrifice. But anyway, and we do the whole. And a lot of us of your parents and my generation, talk about when we fasted, and it was like peanut butter and jelly and spaghetti, and and just all these plain things. And now, because in my Greek act, I actually talk about Greek Lent and I've got jokes, but the thing is now we have so many choices. It's not a sacrifice. Like I basically eat like that most of the time anyway. So I did give up chocolate because that's a huge sacrifice. So
that's a big sacrifice. That's something it's hard to give up. I'll dial it down, but to cut that out, I can't. I'm also like, I'm not doing anything for Lent. Like I'm not a good Greek. I am not.
Don't say that. And that, by the way,
I'm working on it.
That came with when I was your age. Are you kidding? The fights I would have with my mother, forget it. I can't. That's a whole nother podcast. Don't believe me. You're good. We're
working on it. We're working on it. I never paid attention in Sunday school. Let's, well, disclaimer. I also don't speak the language, so we're working on that. But my last name is very Greek. Obviously, anything Opoulos is like, and I look Greek.
As your first name is as well.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. And, my mom was born in Greece, my dad's whole family. So culturally, I'm very Greek, but we're working on, the steps to really seal the deal, make it the whole package.
But you know what? Here's the deal with you and the way that your attitude is and having the support system that you are, you're going to take it all in and it'll be enjoyable. I think I went to Greek parochial school for 8 years. I mean, I was like, my whole world was Greek, everything. And then I went to church and Sunday school and the feast days. And, it was like full on. And when I got to high school, because we had moved out of the city and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Plus we weren't around as many Greek people. And then in college and whatever. And it was really a little later on, or a bit later on, when I had my nieces. I don't have any kids. We don't have any kids, but my nieces, and I'm the godparent. And I was taking my my sister wasn't taking my niece to Sunday school. And then I went, and that's kind of how I got involved. And then I wound up teaching Sunday school because I was just like, I was helping. So it all, but here's the good news. The thing is, I think that it's hard, especially with these, structured religions, and whether you're Catholic or Protestant or whatever, to when they're teaching you this, you're not an adult. So you don't have the adult problems. I mean, I think sometimes it's a little bit more for adults, even though it's good to teach kids to pray, and all that. There's nothing wrong with that, and being grateful and introducing God, and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that, when like parts of the Bible, a lot of parts of the Bible are, how can you understand that as a 10-year-old?
Yeah. And what I think is interesting about religion is that it really is just philosophy. So, part of my studies in college were philosophy. Clearly, I'm interested in that and those topics and those kinds of questions. And I would say I'm a pretty spiritual person, given my passion for yoga. And I went to Bali to do my certification. And it was just this very spiritual experience. But at the end of the day, I think my parents were so worried for me to go because it was in the height of COVID. So they were like, you cannot go all the way to Southeast Asia alone in the middle of a pandemic, but I did it anyway. And then, my mom was afraid I was going to go off with some Australian guy and never come back, or be a part of some cult, because the yoga community can get pretty hippy dippy. And then my dad was worried for my safety, and then was afraid that I was going to change my religion to Buddhism or Hinduism or something. So, I think, they got over their fears. I went, but something that I've realized about myself is that I am very spiritual. And I think there's a lot of connections between what the Greek Orthodox faith preaches and what it's about, and the things that I value in my yoga practice, and things that I've learned through my studies, even in philosophy. So it's all very interconnected. So, you're right. Maybe down the line, some of these things might resonate more, and I may come back to the Greek faith or see it in a different light, in a way that maybe I couldn't recognize as a kid when I slacked off in Sunday school all the time.
Oh, totally. I mean, I teach Sunday school, and I see the glazed look, and I feel like I try to give a good class because I really get these kids, it's not kind of what they wanted me to do. I just do my thing, first I sit down, hey guys, how was your week? What's going on? We talked about the pandemic a little. We talked about the election, not to get political, but just, I wanted to get it all out of their system, all that. But yes, it is. I think some of it is a grown-up thing. And what is nice, and what I think you will definitely embrace, I can see it, is just some of our cultural things, because it roots you and it grounds you, and it connects you more with your family. And, again, I think that comes over time. But what you just said is, again, eons ahead of whatever I or my contemporaries were going through. So I think it's great that you went to Bali and your parents ultimately let you go, or gave you their blessing. I saw the pictures, by the way. As a matter of fact, there's a picture in of course, you look gorgeous in a bikini. If I were you, I'd be walking around in a bikini all day long. And it said, this was what the pandemic looks like. And I looked,
oh my God.
And I looked at the time, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. So that's great that you experienced.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, so when I took that photo, it was after the yoga teacher training program. And right when the program ended, Bali went into lockdown because COVID spiked there. And I was like, great, just my luck. Right as I wanted to travel around Indonesia, I can't unless I'd get deported. So I mean, it was an amazing place to quarantine or have COVID restrictions. I was near the ocean. I was near a pool. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I just want to be back, because it was really just the best summer of my life, especially because I had just graduated from college, and I had done this huge accomplishment. I was so proud of myself, and I had the job security of starting work in the fall. So I had 4 months off. When will I ever get that time again? So I left right when I graduated, flew out to Indonesia, quarantined in Jakarta for about a week, then flew to Bali, did the teacher training, stayed for an additional 3 weeks, and traveled within the island a little bit, and then came back to New York, and then was in Greece for a month and a half with my family, and stopped in Paris. It was really just a dream of a summer. And now I'm sold my soul to the corporate world, which is why I do this podcast, because it really brings me endorphins, to be honest, and really fuels me and gets me excited about other things and meeting interesting people and having really good conversations on topics that I think need to be shared more broadly. So that's what kind of keeps me going.
What kind of guests have you had so far?
I've had such a wide variety of guests. I've had doctors from this company called Parsley Health, which is a holistic health company. So they focus on the blend of Eastern and Western medicine. You would definitely like those episodes because it's around gut health and hormonal health and holistic wellness. And I've had my cousin Ileana. She's a Paralympian and she's medaled at the Paralympic Games a few times. I've had musicians, rappers, architects, fashion designers, entrepreneurs, really people kind of all across the board. So people who are more directly related to the health and wellness field, like therapists, doctors, psychiatrists, and then people that are kind of more tangentially related to health and wellness, either through their career pursuits or their own personal passions. So I really just want to get interesting people on. If I can get their story on my podcast and talk about what they've done and the challenges that they've faced and how they've persevered and, you know, how they define health and wellness and endorphins to them, like that's really kind of what I'm trying to get out on the show.
So what about getting back to like your generation, like what are you seeing with people your age that are challenging? Is it health? Is it mental health? Is it too much social media? Is it not being connected? Because you guys are, we've all become connected, but you know what I'm saying? We also had already, we've had our life, our non-connected life. What are you seeing?
I think it's honestly, it's really struggles with mental health and also social media usage. I would say those two are kind of like the top two things. And it's interesting because my generation in particular, and like kids aged, I don't know, 18 to 24, like let's say I can't, don't quote me on this, but that age group, you know, we're suffering with mental health issues now more than ever before, like anxiety, depression. So many of my friends have like IBS and like digestive issues. And it's like, we're in our early 20s. Like, why are our bodies not functioning right now? Like something else is up and it's stress. And I'm sure a variety of other factors, but stress being probably the predominant one. And so I think that's really the focus right now. And those are, I think, the top issues. And I think also social media now can make like a 16-year-old famous. And so I think there's a lot of pressure, especially among high achieving people, high achieving young adults, like to be successful and to achieve these career aspirations and goals that they have for themselves. And maybe I'm speaking from a biased perspective, especially growing up in New York City, where, you know, a lot of the mentality is being very fast paced and career oriented. But I think that there's just a ton of pressure, especially now that my generation is facing, because we see younger and younger people accomplishing greater and greater things. So it's definitely very difficult. And social media doesn't necessarily help with that because it's the comparison game and we're constantly looking at what other people are doing. And we have FOMO, fear of missing out. And it's very difficult, I would say, just all of those things combined.
So do you think that kids or your age group and younger have more anxiety, depression, issues like that because it's talked about all the time? I mean, even just on a regular commercial, right? I mean, so many things are being sold for that. And when we were growing up, we didn't have pharmaceutical commercials. That's something that's happened, I don't know, happened like 20 years ago. I remember one day going, what the heck, you know, and now it's pretty much, I would say, 65% of the commercials feel like it's something with either drug, medical, something of that nature. It's like, what happened to detergent? And the fact that your generation had access to the internet where you can look up anything at any time. I'm not trying to downplay it, But I'm trying to ask, do you think that influenced it because there's all this information out there? It's just like if you have, I don't know, if you have a pain in your arm, you look it up. Oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. Oh my God, I ripped my tendon. Oh my God, it's my kidney. It could be, you can go crazy. That's why doctors hate when you go on WebMD. They hate it.
It is the dark side. WebMD, you can just go down the spiral.
Oh, so do you think perhaps that might have a bit of an impact? Because in our day, and I'm not saying this was a great thing, but in the same token, we weren't coddled, and we weren't, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming if a parent saw their kid not be able to get out of bed, that's more of a serious thing. But, when we had a little, as we call it, riñada, a little wine, it's like, suck it up, go outside, play, eat the dirt. It's fine. It was a little different mentality, where some parents still do that because that's how they were raised and that's how they want to raise their kids, and some don't. So do you think that has an impact in that, being able to research everything?
It's a good question, because I haven't given that much thought to it, actually. Like the ability to have basically the world at our fingertips and like Google search, why do I feel this way? Or, and I'm sure it does play a role in maybe that, the higher statistics around mental health issues, especially among my generation. But I really think that social media was probably like the primary driver, I would say, of just like the beginning of just greater mental health issues, because it was then people being on Instagram starting to feel that fear of missing out, or people being bullied online, or I think, like Facebook, it's not that big now anymore, but it was when like I was in middle school, or like late elementary school, middle school, I would say. And, we had this thing called Ask FM, which was like a website where you could have a profile and people could ask you anonymous questions. And it got to be pretty bad. Like people were really mean on Ask FM, and people, especially in middle school, like aren't the nicest. Like it's just an awkward, not so great time. So I think that like bullying definitely plays a factor in that. And then just people posting on social media. So I would say, I think like social media probably was like the initial reason that like, I think a lot of mental health issues started to come to surface or like be talked about. I don't really know if it's like the ability to sit down and Google, why am I feeling this way? Because if you're feeling really depressed, I can't imagine someone who's like super depressed sit down and whip out their phone and be like, why am I so sad? Or like they're probably just so upset that like maybe they don't even feel like the ability to reach for that resource or like inquire about that. Like maybe they feel maybe paralyzed in that experience. So I don't know if it's like primarily just the ability to Google it, but I'm sure that, that action has played a role in just greater, like us seeing more mental health issues now. Because maybe if you are feeling anxious, you can whip out your phone and be like, what are some causes of anxiety, or like, what can I do to start feeling better? Like maybe that would be a more positive way of using the internet. Like, what are things I can do to not feel so anxious, like seeking resources. But it's interesting is because I've never really given a lot of thought to that dynamic in particular.
Well, I kind of think that it's part of it. It's not all of it. But I think that it doesn't help. I think I don't know. And I kind of know a little bit of this from experience, from not me personally, but although I shouldn't say that me personally, but more, again, the younger people. But it's here. And again, just like everything else, we have to manage it. We use it. We love it. We love having, ways, we love having all these things, but we have to manage, as you say, the dark side of it as well. It's very upsetting when you hear about bullying in this day and age, because I feel that the kids have been very well educated on bullying, and for kids to still bully when it's one thing when it was sort of not as discussed, but it is out there. It is taught in schools. There are rules and regulations against it. And when kids are still doing it and taunting, that's disturbing, because it's like, how much more can you talk about it?
Yeah, exactly. It's really disturbing just to think about how bad bullying can get online. And I mean, I think it's also with like younger people. Like now I'm in my 20s, and you don't really see bullying as much now. I would say it's more of like when you're in your preteen or teenager era, but I would hope that there's progress being made in that front.
Right. Yeah, I mean, school is a different experience now, and things are, exposure to things are different. And I don't know. I think, I don't know. I do know. I think little kids have to be little kids, and there are things that are being taught in school now that I think kids are too young for. I think everything reaches a maturity level. We were talking about Britney Spears one day, and I didn't watch the documentary Being Britney or anything like that, but I know a little bit about the story. And I remember watching her on TV, and she was at the height, and she said how her parents pulled her out of school at 13. And it was in the interview, she was like chomping on gum, and she was just, even though she was 20 and she was making all this money, and I'm looking at her like she's still a kid. And I'm thinking, myself, 8th grade, you pulled her out of the 8th grade. And I really do have a third eye. There was something that really, it was mesamu, it was inside me. There was something like that didn't feel right about her, what I mean? And all these years later, I mean, I was kind of right. The woman had a breakdown. And what bothered me too was, my first thought was, these adults are sucking money off of her talent. I'm not saying don't cultivate her talent and all this other stuff, but they really, like, it's these showbiz moms. It's like, what's her name? The Kardashian.
Yeah, for sure.
Not as much for her older kids, but for the younger ones. But although she pimped out Kim with the tape, all that stuff is, you can't. So my point is, there are no shortcuts in life. You have to be 8, you have to be 10, you have to be 12, you have to be 15. You can't go from 8 to 20. It doesn't work. It's like breathing. It's just, we're not wired that way. So going back to what I was saying, and maybe this is something because you are the voice of your generation, of just people understanding that certain things, like, when I don't know how your parents did this, but I know, like, I remember with the adults, I'd walk into a room, it'd be like, shh, don't say anything, Now people are so much more open to say everything, or if it's not the family, they're learning it on TV, or
right, exactly.
Whatever. Everything's got a message. Everything has a social component. It's like, oh my God, can't I just be entertained for 2 seconds? So I think it's frustrating. And your generation and younger, you're not having the opportunity to just have like a nice experience. Like, everything has to have like a message. And I think that causes anxiety.
Yeah.
All right.
But
good.
yes, to go back to what you were saying about, it causes more anxiety, like not being able to just be in your age group. I completely agree with that sentiment. Like, I think, especially just seeing like the whole Britney story as well, like, especially when you're in like the show business and entertainment world, there's that pressure to keep like being older than you are. And I think it takes away from just the experience of being a kid. And it's funny because when I was younger, I wanted to be a child actress. Like, I really wanted to be in show business and entertainment. And my parents were like, you are absolutely not becoming the next Lindsay Lohan. And I wanted to be her because I loved The Parent Trap, but they were like, you were not becoming the next Lindsay Lohan. And somehow they found a way to like get me involved in the Metropolitan Opera. So that was how I became part of the arts community and performing on stage and being an actress. I was a child actress employed by the Metropolitan Opera. And that was kind of like the happy medium. So I didn't make it to Hollywood, but I did make it to the opera at Lincoln Center. But they were like, this is what's going to save you. Like, you're not going to become this crazy child actress. Right, so that was like the happy medium.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong. I encourage, kids or everybody I think needs some kind of art, whatever that is for you. It's out there, it's God's gift, and we should take advantage of it, whether it's music, whether it's movies, whether it's reading. I mean, we have, so much to at our fingertips. But like I was saying, I just think that sometimes when I'm trying to do that and enjoy myself, and then there's some social component to it, or some message, or something, it's like, oh my God, really? So I like to keep it light. I like to keep it light and airy, or mysterious and dark, but I think, I love music, but not the music that's now. I love old, 80s, 90s music. So I think some of it, I don't even get it. But anyway, we won't go down. That's a dark path. I won't even go down that. I won't even go down that road. All right. So let us know. We got to wrap it up. We've kept you, and we really appreciate you coming on. You're fascinating, so interesting. You have so much ahead of you. Give us all your social media, where we can find you, what you're going to be doing in the future.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you on. And I know earlier you asked me what kind of guests I have on. Looking to bring a comedian onto the podcast. So hopefully we can do a round 2.
I'm available. Uh-huh.
The Greek goddess of comedy needs to make an appearance on Everday Endorphins. But speaking of, you can find the podcast on any listening platform that you like. So Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google, they're all up on all of them. And I recently published a website, just www.everydayendorphins.com, which has a little bit about me, about the podcast, where you can listen, any upcoming events I'll be doing with the podcast. And my personal Instagram is just at Stella Stephanopoulos, and the podcast Instagram is at Everday_endorphins. And then I recently got on TikTok for the podcast, which is just at Everday Endorphins.
Oh, I can't do the TikTok. I can't. I can't wrap my head. I mean, I'll look at like little dancing videos once in a while, but I just can't do another thing. But good for you. Good for you.
It's the youthful generation. It's a very fast growing platform. So I've been advised to get on TikTok. I'm not the best at it, but I'm on there.
Oh God, I just want to write a joke. But anyway, you've been a delight. Thank you so much. Everybody go to Stella's podcast. I was scrolling. I didn't have a chance to listen to any of them, but I did scroll. I'm going to go back. There's one, I'm going to go back and listen to a few of them, but one of them is on procrastination. So I definitely have to listen to that one. I should probably listen to it twice. So thank you so much. You're adorable. Say hi to your parents. I love them so much. And I am Ellen Karis. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Greek Chick Comic. Facebook, yes, I know Facebook's for old people. Well, what do you expect? I have a fan page, and it's Ellen Karis, Greek Goddess Comedy. My website is ellenkaris.com, where you can find this podcast and all the other ones that we have done for 6 seasons weekly. Thank you so much, Stella Stephanopoulos. Thank you, everybody. Until next time. Bye.